Hi everyone, my name is Flynn, and welcome back to another episode from my character build series. It has been some time since I last released a video, but I want to kind of circle back and start making some of these videos again because there has been a huge demand for them. So today I'm circling back and I'm going to create an updated hero guide on my favorite hero, Kasel. If you guys have watched my previous Kasel video, you can definitely tell that it has not aged very well. Since that video has been posted, Kasel has received quite a few buffs, mainly due to his rework on his skill 4 as well as his UT 4. So today we'll take a look at see what the impact of those changes are and what I believe the optimal build is. It isn't an understatement when I say Kasel is my favorite character. He is the reason I continue to play King's Raid and the reason why I keep coming back to the game. So with that regard, this episode kind of excites me because I get to talk about my favorite hero and I get to show you guys both my PvP build and my PvE build. And then we'll go ahead and also review some of his transcendence skills. Up first, and what you see in front of you, is my preferred PvP build. Now, in most regards, warriors do love to go under a protection set, and I also endorse a protection set for warriors because it makes them tankier and it lets them survive longer and have more of a proper bruiser build. But Kasel being the character he is for me, I prefer to go with a suppression build, and this is a usually good idea if you do plan to make Kasel your main investment or your highest investment or your main damage dealer in general. What you see before you is literally the Kasel that a lot of you may already see in PvP, be it League of Honor or League of Victory. And in this particular aspect, he is set up in a specific way. However, I will kind of divulge some of the things I believe you guys need to have on your Kasel if you obviously don't run my comp. Alright, so let's talk about his PvP build. What you see right before you is a specific set amount of crit damage, penetration, accuracy, and attack speed. He will need an additional stat in the form of MP attack if you don't run something like Elias or a Juno. Those particular heroes can help Kasel with his mana gen, especially if he gets Juno's bubble or obviously Elias simply using her skill 3. Kasel's greatest strength comes from his unique weapon. His unique weapon, the Holy Sword Ea, scales directly off of his attack stat, so it's always a good idea to have a decent amount of attack. The cool part about Ea is it also crits, so you always want to make sure you have enough crit to make sure that you can counter both crit resist and to make sure that you can deal enough damage to things such as walls and other bruisers. If Kasel is your main damage dealer, you always want to make sure you also have crit damage. Crit damage does scale with all of his Ea procs, as well as obviously all of his skills. One important aspect to note is I prefer to use UT2, which is the Emperor's Gauntlet, for his PvP set. What this allows him to do is, if his S2 crits, there is a immediate cooldown reduction as well as a DPS increase by the actual skill itself. I prefer that in PvP because it allows him to simply continue to use S2 as long as it crits, and if it hits 3 or more targets, you do get a full cooldown reset in that aspect. Another important aspect to Kasel is his artifact. He can use a wide variety of artifacts, but there are a few that stand out clearly as the best artifacts for Kasel. Not many of you may be able to get your hands on the Crosshead Pumpkin, but I prefer the first artifact to be the Crosshead Pumpkin because it increases his max HP as well as deals 2% of max HP as additional damage. On top of that, because this is an additional attack, it helps proc Ea. If you do not have access to the Cross Pumpkin Head, the common artifact Solar Stone does very well in that aspect. It will deal damage based on your attack stat, it reduces your enemy's heal rate, as well as help proc Ea. Now, onto the more vital stats, let's take a look at penetration. As you can see, I have 490 penetration on my build. You always want to have around soft cap, which is at least 450. Kasel is a very powerful damage dealer. However, if your enemy is infused on defense and you don't have enough penetration, you definitely will not see very good effectiveness out of any of your dealers. In PvP, he doesn't have access to things like ignore block or ignore defense, so in that regard, penetration becomes extremely important to him. Additionally, if you're facing an enemy Juno, more than likely she's burning the perk to also reduce penetration, so it's always a good idea to have at least soft cap on Kasel. Besides that, I also included a extra line of accuracy. Nothing hurts more than just losing to a dodge hero or a soft cap dodge hero. So running an extra line of accuracy can kind of help negate the fact that Kasel may end up missing his attacks. And a missed AF proc is a rather massive DPS loss. If you guys are curious about Kasel's PvP performance, I would definitely recommend checking out some of my Twitch archives here on my channel. The majority of the matches definitely have him drafted as the hero of choice, and I hope you guys will not be disappointed. Normally I would include a PvP montage video, however, considering how much I stream and how much I draft Kasel, it would be much easier to just simply go ahead and take a look at some of the Twitch archives that I have. Now let's talk Transcendence perks. When it comes to PvP, you can have yourself quite a few options. Unfortunately, in Kasel's particular case, not too many of his actual Transcendence 3/Transcendence 4 perks are actually worth it. When it comes to Transcendence 1 perks, you always want to take your T1 attack up buff. Obviously, we all know that Kasel scales incredibly well with attack, and he will hit harder in general by taking this perk. HP also scales incredibly well. You always want to make sure you take your HP up perk, especially if you run things like Crosshead Pumpkin. Another good option if you go with a protection set is to go ahead and you take the crit resist up perk. This will help your DPS stay alive longer. It will also help things crit less on Kasel. However, the first two of choice is definitely attack and HP. When it comes to Transcendence 2 perks, for Kasel, I would definitely recommend Tactical Foresight. He already gets an incredible amount of dodge from his skills and from his passives. So this will increase an additional 200, and obviously he gets 10% toughness or reduced damage in PvP. What the cool part about this one is it also stacks on top of S3, which also gives an additional 250 physical and magical dodge. The second perk you should always take and has an incredible value is Blood Wrath. It increases his lifesteal by 200, rendering you the need to not build lifesteal, as well as giving him an additional 200 attack speed. When it comes to Transcendence 3 perks, I only find one to be incredibly valuable, and that is Strike of the Goddess Dark. He receives 15% reduced damage from heroes. This helps him survive longer in PvP, and obviously continue to survive longer. And finally, for Transcendence 5, you would always want both perks. Attack, defense, and HP on his light, and you always want to take Kasel Dark. And that's because upon attacking, he deals an additional damage equal to 80% of attack. This helps proc Aya as well as him dealing a massive amount of damage. With PvP out the way, let's go ahead and talk about PvE. Kasel's damage scaling in PvE has definitely grown over the years. And with the introduction of his UT4, as well as some really powerful artifacts, Kasel's damage in PvE in general has kind of gone to a very decent place, to the point that I can call him a half-decent generalist. The reason you would like to take UT4, which is completely different than my original guide, is because of his rework. His UT4 increases his damage defense boost that is on the scale, as well as his own damage dealt to bosses by 30%. This is extremely valuable when you take Kasel into things like Challenge Raid, into Tower of Challenge, or any content in general that has a boss, which, let's be honest, the majority of PvE. In terms of direct artifact, the general artifact is Fantastic Hybrid Animals, and obviously that deals an additional amount of non-hero damage to non-hero enemies. Likewise, in challenge rates, you'd probably want something like a specific mask, for example, Lizard Mask if you are facing a Lizard boss, an Undead Mask if you're facing an Undead enemy, so on and so forth. As you guys could already tell, I am running a full Manticore set on Kasel. The stats that you see before you are my general guidelines for when you go in to build your generalist Kasel. As you can see before you, I am running close to about 400 pen. In PvE, I find it a lot easier to be able to receive pen from other heroes such as Mei. And I'm running about 200% crit damage, which makes it easy to also get a crit damage buff from other heroes such as Lavriel. Additionally, you'll see about 730 crit. I would like to go a little higher, but obviously I'm kind of blocked by my own stat lines. But usually you want to aim right around 800 crit, as well as 480 MP recovery per attack to help with his mana gen. As you can tell, I kept his attack speed on the stat sheet around 1200. That's once again because he gets 250 for free from his S3, and it is a lot easier to also get an attack speed buff from various other heroes in PvE. Now let's talk Transcendence perks. This is a sheet you'll definitely be playing around with a lot when it comes to PvE. In most aspects, you're always going to want to go ahead and take your attack up T1 perk and take your monster hunting T1 perk. The only reason you will never take a T1 monster hunting perk is if you have to face a hero boss, to which obviously monster hunting does not work because it is damage dealt to non-hero enemies. When it comes to T2 perks, you can never go wrong with Opportune Strike. It increases his crit chance by 150 and crit damage by 30%. However, it is not very stat efficient, but it would definitely help whenever you're stat locked. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you are faced with a lot of enemies, Warlock is never a bad option. It is a significant attack increase, as well as gives him some CC resistance, although on Kasel it doesn't really matter, because his skill 3 gives him immunity. I don't find Offensive Guard to be a good perk, and in PvE I also do not find Tactical Foresight to be a good perk. And when it comes to Blood Wrath, it is always an incredible value because you never have to build Lifesteal, and obviously you get that additional 200 attack speed. In PvE, his main perk is going to be S3 Dark, and a lot of the content that you'll face non-hero enemies, and thus this perk will come in handy because it increases his entire damage by 100%. Another good perk to always take is going to be Judgment Blade Dark. When there's one enemy, it will ignore defense. That is actually incredibly powerful and one of the few reasons why Kasel can do so well in a lot of challenge rates. Other good perks definitely include Valiant Dash Dark and even Strike of the Goddess Light. However, because Kasel is kind of hungry when it comes to his PvE perks, sometimes you'll have to make some concessions. As always, you always want to take your T5 Dark. This will help him deal more DPS, as well as obviously help proc Aya. When it comes to his PvE perks, he really is perk hungry. So this is a good setup for a PvE Kasel who's going after a single target boss. What you see before you is the exact build and setup I used to clear Trial 8 of Earth. If you're interested in seeing how Kasel does in PvE, I have a Trial 8 Earth clear featuring him and Taylor on my YouTube channel. Go ahead and visit the video section and you can take a look at how well he does in that aspect. With all that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the updated Kasel build video. If you guys are interested in seeing how he does, you can check out quite a few of my different videos on YouTube, or you can go ahead and catch me on a live stream every Saturday morning at 10 AM Eastern Time on Twitch. You guys will definitely be able to find the link to my Twitch on my YouTube videos. With that said, you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you next week's episode for PvP Lias and both PvE and PvP Lucius.